We are now 250 days away from the midterms, and during his State of the Union, President Trump worked very hard to keep the nation focused on what he says are the big wins in year one of his second term. But the story that is consuming Washington and far beyond are the Jeffrey Epstein files. They continue to deliver new bombshells. Just this week, we learned that the missing Epstein files include interviews with an alleged Trump accuser. MS Now has confirmed that DOJ withheld memos and handwritten notes, reflecting several interviews with a woman who accused both Epstein and Trump of sexual assault when she was a minor. Only one of those interviews has been released. It is not clear if the missing documents include the allegations against President Trump. Remember, he has previously denied any wrongdoing related to the Epstein case. The top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee is now asking the DOJ why exactly it withheld documents about those interviews and whether Trump is being investigated. This, as Bill and Hillary Clinton are set to testify tomorrow and Friday before that very same committee about their connections to Epstein. Also this evening, well-known economist Larry Summers will officially resign from Harvard University over revelations about his ties to Epstein. The school confirmed he will remain on leave until he retires at the end of this academic year. All three are not accused of any wrongdoing. And the Wall Street Journal is now reporting that Bill Gates has officially apologized to his employees at the Gates Foundation, that staff, for his ties to the convicted sex offender, while insisting he did not participate in any of Epstein's crimes. All right, let's bring in our nightcap. David Rode is here, MS Now senior national security reporter. Dan Nathan joins us, CNBC contributor and co-host of the Risk Reversal podcast. MS Now political analyst Molly Jong-Fast. She's a contributing writer for the New York Times and host of Fast Politics podcast. I visit it all the time. And Pablo Torre is here, ESPN analyst and host of the Meadowlark Media's Pablo Torre Finds Out podcast. If you haven't listened to it, you must be asleep. Okay, Molly. What does this new information about the accusations about these missing files, how does this change the Epstein situation?
So I actually interviewed Representative Garcia on Monday, and he said that they had searched these numbers, right? There were these numbers that matched 302 forms. The 302s are little FBI interviews, and they were missing. And he said that they weren't quite, they just had to sort of nail it down. NPR was the first big outlet to cover it, MS, and the Times followed. But basically, there's a lot of missing stuff. And we knew, I've interviewed survivors, they knew there was a lot of their testimony missing. We know there's a lot of video missing, there's a lot of photographs missing. News Channel 4 in the UK said they think there's only like 2 to 4% of all of the information out. I don't think that's right. But there's definitely stuff missing. And so the question is, why is it missing? And, this DOJ has seemed very much like its main priority is protecting Donald Trump. So it's a question that we've gotten to.
Bill Gates, what does it tell us that Bill Gates has to tell his Gates Foundation employees, yes, I had affairs with these 2 Russian women, and feels the need to qualify it and say one was a nuclear physicist and one was a bridge player? Like, don't worry, I didn't traffic them. Okay, and at the same time, you've got Larry Summers now being forced out of Harvard for good.
Yeah, the way I think about it is look at all these institutions that just laid down before the administration, and look, we have Bill Gates in tech, we have Rumler in Wall Street, we have Karp at the law firms, and now you have Summers in academia, and there's like a through line there if you think about it, right? And a lot of these folks, they were really trying, they were hoping they got the Trump treatment if you think about it, right? And so when you think about the pressure that's been put on those institutions, and these individuals were big people in their fields, if you think about it.
As big as it gets.
As big as it gets. And then who has been protected? Everybody who's around the president, right? We have Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. There's going to be no fallout for those folks. And so I just think this is a continuation of kind of just beating down those institutions that they wanted to grind down. And so that's something that when we get 3 million more, I think there's going to be other casualties in some of these big institutions.
Another domino today, former Senator Bob Kerrey, he had to step down. He's a board chair of a startup. Said if he knew now, he deeply regrets all of his ties to Epstein, so on and so forth. But to Dan's point, another person falling, yet no one in the administration. What's your take on where we are in all this?
Look, the question is the cover-up. I mean, it's not exactly rocket science at this point. We can sort of haggle over what's in the files, but the question, really, the operative question is, why haven't these files been published? And that is now based on the reporting of mainstream outlets, per the law that Trump signed. The Transparency Act, it's in the name, right? And so, look, I like to joke with you, Steph, like, Kash Patel, this FBI, this DOJ, they're the dog that caught the car. They were campaigning on this being their issue, and then they caught the car, and the car is full of Epstein files, and they don't want to tell people what's in them. And so, look, the question of why are some people feeling the pressure and why are other people being protected, you could divine that answer through the political structure we're sort of describing, but also it's clear that there is a public pressure.
Right.
And the question is whether public pressure affects this administration. And this is a through line in this administration, right? Is shame even possible anymore? If you're Bill Gates, if you're a senator, if you're somebody who has to be respectable in mixed company, in polite society, yeah, you better have answers to questions. If you're in the administration, you don't necessarily need to even answer them.
Yikes, David, it is almost unfathomable how broad and deep Epstein's ties were. You've got some pretty unique reporting on who he was. What can you tell us?
It's extraordinary how he was able to manipulate some of these people.
So many of them.
He presented himself as, hanging out with the wealthy and the famous, and that he himself was incredibly rich, and it was all a facade. And when you look at the draft emails, they're sort of insanely manipulative. And then where he's going to try to, coax these people to give him even more power. But what strikes me here in the broader dynamic is, and maybe you can add some insight based on your visit to the White House, the fear of Donald Trump among his own appointees. I mean, I think Pam Bondi is terrified of releasing any documents that embarrass Donald Trump and Kash Patel. And I think it's a huge mistake. It prolongs this scandal, but it's this sort of pyramid of fear with Trump.
But David, that is why I believe Donald Trump is so happy in this administration in 2.0. In the first administration, you could dislike or like Jeffrey Sessions or Bill Barr, but they're highly qualified for these positions. Pam Bondi, not qualified for the position. Kash Patel, not qualified for the position. But they know, as per when they got those jobs, the number one qualification is to make Donald Trump happy, is to not fight him. So as long as they are doing his bidding, they're going to keep their jobs. Bill and Hillary Clinton testifying tomorrow and Friday.
I mean, this is the James Comer thing. So James Comer is the head of oversight. He has, he is letting people testify. And what is a little bit dangerous for Comer is that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files again and again and again. So we had Les Wexner testify, do a big deposition. There was a lot of damning stuff in there. He mentioned Trump. He said, why was Trump coming to the Victoria's Secret fashion shows? I think it's good.
Which is obviously not a crime.
Right, not a crime at all. But, you have this autocrat who just wants to not be embarrassed. You have this serial sex trafficker, maybe the largest in history, Jeffrey Epstein, who was his good friend for a long time. Like, that does not mean that he necessarily did anything untoward, but it just means that he can be implicated. And when you search his name in the files, certainly he is.
All right, new topic.
Comes up.
We do not know the president's next steps on Iran, but there is a massive military buildup in the region. We know Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. I saw them yesterday at the White House. They're headed off for talks with Iran tomorrow. Is diplomacy an option here? I mean, Trump said Iran wants a deal more than we do, but they're unwilling to say the magic words, which is, we're done building nuclear weapons.
So that was what was so strange about the State of the Union address. Iran's foreign minister said yesterday, we don't want a nuclear weapon. Iran has said that a million times, and the president is declaring that's the thing they need to say. I know that sounds surreal.
Really?
Yes.
It's funny. It's the one thing he kept saying to us yesterday, and he said, this is on the record. Iran is not saying the magic phrase.
They have said it for years, and for years, American presidents and Israeli prime ministers don't believe a promise from Iran. And that's why you need a comprehensive agreement where you're inspecting their nuclear facilities, making sure they're not engaged in enrichment. And so this is such a strange moment where there's this massive buildup, but there's not a clear diplomatic off-ramp. that no red line what the United States actually wants here.
And
so it's a very strange situation.